Hi, and welcome back to Adrian Spin. Today, I wanted to talk about online dating. I think I addressed that a little bit in my first video, but not to the extent that I want to address it here. I wanted to basically come from a guy's perspective and some of the things that I experienced and did, and what led to my eventual success in online dating. And I wanted to share that with the men. So, welcome again back to the program.
I really think this is a good idea. I'm not sure, but
Yeah, I wanted to start by saying that women's expectations in dating can be kind of unrealistic, meaning that, as I explained in my first video, there's about 80% of men that many women online, if not most, find unattractive on dating sites. And that is something that is just a recipe for failure because, as I explained, the men who they want have lots of options, and they're not going to choose 80% of the women. They're going to do what same thing women are doing. Women are choosing their best option. They're choosing men that, are 6'4", look like a movie star, intelligent, witty, fit, muscular, romantic, whatever. But men have the same kind of expectations. And if you're pursuing a man that has everything going for him, that he's on the ball and he's got all that stuff going on, all these other women want him, the chance of you getting him is just a, let's say, average woman, although many women nowadays don't think they're average. They all think, I don't want to say all, but many think they're special, and they think that they deserve for some reason the top of the line guy, and that's just not realistic. It's not going to happen. And even if they manage to date guys like that occasionally, they're not going to get a long-term commitment for somebody like that. They're just not. It's, any type of relationship that you want to develop with a man, he's going to have some kind of commitment to you. He's not going to do that if he feels like he has a lot of other options, and if you, on his scale, don't meet up to his expectations. So it's really just the same thing that women are doing done back to them from that perspective. And one of the things I wanted to encourage encouragement about is that if they really want to strive for success in dating and relationships and finding somebody who is somebody that is more like what they've always wanted in a woman, they're really probably going to have to go to other countries to find that, just to be realistic. And I'm talking to your average man out there, because as I explained, the average man, he's basically invisible since they're looking at top 20% or whatever. The average guy who's 4, 5, 6, whatever, he's pretty much invisible to them anyway. So if you want to have success in dating, you need to consider the option of looking at overseas dating. There are a lot of different countries that you can go to, not just the Philippines, but you got Vietnam, you have Malaysia, Thailand, and that's, the Eastern countries. And then you have in Europe, like Poland and, you know, Ukraine, even despite what's going on there, there's a lot of Ukrainian women who may still be in Ukraine, but not specifically in a war zone, or they may have left to one of the neighboring countries. But uh, you have South America, Colombia, Venezuela, not Venezuela, sorry. I've been to Venezuela, went down there. They actually wouldn't let me in because I'm an American, and it's probably for the best anyway. But anyway, there's a lot of various countries around the world where you're going to find traditional women. and it's going to spare you from, you know, the lack of success you probably have anyway here in the United States. If you do decide to go that route and get online and look for women in another country, what I would suggest is not looking for like the hottest girl you can find, because what you're going to discover is that they have lots of men pursuing them, and so it's kind of like the whole thing here in America. If you try to get the top woman or somebody who's in the very top percentage in attractiveness, looks, whatever, you're probably not going to have a lot of success. And if she seems to, like you and everything, there's a good chance in a situation like that that you're going to be scammed. That she's going to end up trying to take you for money. A lot of times, what happens in a situation like that, this actually happened to me once. Um, that they won't ask for money outright. What they'll do is they'll say, "Oh, my grandmother's broke her glasses, or she's sick and can't afford her medication. I wish there's a way, that I could get it for her. I don't have any money right now." So they'll use like this third party excuse and sob story type, which is almost always made up anyway. But they'll use that as a hook to get you on the line and reel you in, and then take advantage of you and take you for granted, whatever, and take your money. In many cases, in those situations, they've got a boyfriend or other guys they're seeing anyway. So, it doesn't mean every woman who's attractive to you, you need to avoid her. But if she comes from a big city, I would say just avoid her altogether. Look for the women more in the small towns. City women just tend to be, um, a lot of scammers, and they they tend to be more westernized, so they're not going to be traditional women in a lot of cases. So it was just a good idea just to avoid them. The dating apps will tell you what town they live in and where they come from. So look at it on a map and get a idea of what that looks like, because you're looking for somebody from a small town, a village or something, where they can, um, where they're not exposed to that big city party life and all that kind of stuff. Um, you can find that here in America any day of the week. But for a traditional small town girl, if you want somebody who's traditional and will treat you like you want to be treated as a man, that's the route really to go. The other thing that I would suggest is to not date single mothers. Now, there's many reasons for that. Some, women, if they're watching, might get upset by me saying that. But the thing is, especially if you're a young man or younger man, you're going to want your own family and your own children. That's just natural. And, you know, also the other thing about having a woman who has children is, they're going to be a priority to her, of course, and like the number one priority. So you're always going to take a back seat, and maybe there are times where you can't, that you can't go out together because of, situation with the kids or whatever. So there's a lot of things that, and especially if you're young and you don't have any kids of your own, there are plenty of single women out there, plenty of young, attractive, um, traditional women that, if you're serious about, you could start your own family with. So I would suggest going that route, just because you also don't have the drama of, the father of the children, all that kind of stuff. There's just so many factors involved. And why do that? Because if you go to another country, in many cases, you're going to have lots of women who are interested in you. It's kind of role reversal. Here, it's the opposite. You go online, you don't get as many women as interested in you. The best looking women, they're chasing after Chad, the 6'4" movie star looking guy. But what you want is to find, like I said, a small town girl, traditional, no kids, Because if you're looking for a long-term relationship, then really that's the route you can go where you're going to have the least amount of drama, the least amount of complications and problems. You don't need that. You're going to another country, you'll have women coming up to you or, you know, messaging you on your app or your dating site to get to know you and everything. So find out everything you can about her. But that's one thing that if I were you, I would just avoid. Another thing you don't want to do, which probably won't be as much of a problem as if you're going on dating sites to meet women in other countries, but don't be a simp. Don't be one of the guys that are like get on there and say, "Hey, you're so beautiful," and "Oh, I really, your your dress is so nice," and this, and just try and puff them up because you come across as desperate, you come across as weak, and women just aren't attracted to that. So just be yourself and don't put them up on a pedestal. What I always say is that if you put a woman up on a pedestal, meaning that you just adore her and all this kind of stuff, instead of acting like she's just another person like you and acting like a man around her, that if you put her up on a pedestal and practically worship her, when you put something up on a pedestal, they're looking down on you. And that's the last thing you want. A woman wants a man that's going to be a man, who's going to act like a man, who's going to, take care of things, who's, going to be there to watch out if, you go out on the town, go out on a date or whatever, and you run into trouble, you'll handle it. You're the man and everything. How could she trust you to be like that if you're a simp, if you're weak, if, women, trust me, women just do not want that. And I don't care what any woman out there might tell you, that's just the God honest truth. Also, watch out for women that are using a lot of filters. Um, and you can usually tell their skin will be too perfect and shiny or whatever. And, things won't quite line up. The background might seem a little off. You can just tell it doesn't look quite natural. Of course, with AI, things I'm sure are getting a lot better, and there'll be a point where you won't be able to tell. But what you want to do too is look for things like, are there, um, is the father at home? Does she have a father there? Are they close? Do they have she have a good relationship with the family? Most of the times in these countries that you'd be looking at, have very strong family ties, which is good news for you because that means that she's going to want a family. She's going to want to be serious, and she's looking at being a good wife and mother, and the things a man that wants a traditional woman is looking for. If a woman seems to be too made up, you know, everything doesn't seem natural. Like when I first started talking to my wife, before she was my wife, when I was actually talking to several women at the time. But when I talked to her, she didn't wear makeup. She was just normal and natural and obviously wasn't using filters. And, sometimes she'd get up and walk away so you'd see what she looked like. And, she wasn't trying to hide anything or whatever. And, it was just a very natural relationship. And in the end, that's kind of what won me over. I wanted somebody who was natural, who was traditional, who wasn't trying to, sometimes you kind of feel uncomfortable. You feel like you're not sure. Yeah, this seems too good to be true. Maybe she's, using me, or sometimes women will be like, oh, they barely even know you, but they want to, get somebody so much that they'll try to say, they're trying to love bomb you or say, oh, I love you, and you barely know each other. So look out for those kind of red flags as well. I did have one experience before I met my wife online where there was another woman and she was good looking and it, I don't know, something just didn't quite sit right with me. And it's funny because she wanted to see my Facebook page and everything. So I showed her. But what happened was, you know, Facebook, I don't know, because it knows who's looking at your page and stuff. Sometimes they'll pop up on people you might know. She popped up on there, and I was like, that's weird. Anyway, it was funny because she had told me, "Oh yeah, the father's not in my son's life," and I was, because she was attractive and seemed to have all the other qualities. I was thinking, well, you know, she has a kid, a young kid, but maybe I'll make an exception because she seems to have everything else or whatever. Well, what happened when that other site came up, I discovered that she was still with her husband. They weren't separated, they weren't apart. Because I looked on her face, she had two Facebook pages. The one she wanted to show me single and look at me, I'm, looking for a man or whatever. And then she had another page that she didn't know I could see. And it showed her and her husband with their kid, and they were celebrating his birthday and and talking about things they were doing and all this kind of stuff. And it was just like the day before she had posted pictures of them together and doing something. It was just crazy. But that stuff goes on. So that's why I'm saying, don't date single mothers. You never know what's really going on anyway, especially in a third world country. And, you'll find women like that just lie to you. What they'll do in situations like that is they'll have a husband or boyfriend or whatever, and they'll use you to try and get money out of you, send them money and stuff. So her and her boyfriend or husband or whoever can just, use that as extra income coming in, and she'll keep stringing you along. So there's all kinds of stuff you got to watch out for out there. You should be okay, because like I said, I found my wife on there. Two of my friends found their Philippine wives out there as well. Still married, still happy. All of us have good relationships. Been married a long time now, and everything's good. So leave your comments. Let me know what you think. Like, share, subscribe to the channel. I'm new, but I just felt like I really needed to do this. There's a lot of things that are going on out there. I know a lot of young men from work and stuff, and from places I've worked that, you find out what's going on in the dating world and in their life, and, issues with girlfriends and all this kind of stuff. And I'm just trying to provide another option so that men can have something else to look forward to, and other options of maybe where you want to live or finding a traditional woman. So anyway, like I said, like, share, subscribe, comment below. Let me know what you think. Thanks a lot.
I really think this is a good idea. I'm not sure, but